You're listening to Gaming Buzz, your source for information and entertaining discussions about video games for video game enthusiasts. With your hosts, Jacob, Darien, and Christian, all huge nerds who can never have too many games. Now, let's get this started.
Hello and welcome to episode 8 of Gaming Buzz. My name is Jacob and I'm here with Christian.
Hello.
And Darien.
Hey.
This week we are going to be discussing video game cheat codes. And why are we doing that, Darien?
Because we're not good enough to beat anything.
Yeah, mainly Christian. He kind of sucks at video games, so he has to use cheat codes to help him.
Sure thing, man.
Honestly, the first time I beat Grand Theft Auto San Andreas, I couldn't have done it without cheat codes.
That's because you suck?
And I was in 7th grade, and I was still a scrub.
You still suck.
I beat the game 4 times without cheat codes.
But you still suck. Earlier today, we were just talking and hanging out, and somehow the conversation of video game cheat codes came up and how much we miss them. Because a lot of games today don't have them, and they were so much fun. So we thought it would be a really cool idea to go back and talk about some of our favorite cheat codes from the games we played. And of course, when we're talking about cheat codes, the first code you have to talk about always is the Konami code. Pop quiz, Christian. What's the Konami code?
Up, up, down, down, left, right, B, A. Select start.
Darien, what's the Konami code?
Don't even ask me, because I've never used it.
You know that it is a law in the gaming code, and it's not a cheat code, that you must know the Konami code by heart.
But I never owned many Konami games.
The Konami code is our national anthem. If you can't recite it, you're not a gamer.
I guess I'm going to have to learn it.
Sing with me. Up, up, down, down, left, left, right, B, A, select, start.
Okay, now that you've destroyed every single one of our listeners' eardrums, why don't we talk about some of those games that did use the Konami code? And maybe we'll play some of them with Darien to make him use the code.
Well, one of the best known games for that is the Contra series.
Oh yeah, Contra. Have you played Contra before, Darien?
Yes, I have.
What did you think about it?
It was really difficult, and I couldn't get through very far.
That's where the magic of the Konami code comes in. So, Christian, what's that code again?
I'm not going to sing it this time. Up, up, down, down, left, right. Wait. Up, up, down, down, left, right, B, A, select start.
And what does that do in Contra?
It gives you infinite lives or 30 lives.
Oh, yeah. And you need every single one of those lives, all 30 of them.
I'd imagine, because I could barely get past, the first 3 levels.
I have barely beaten that game. I've only beaten it with my father because he knows how to play it because that's his game. And every time I play, I just die, but because I don't have enough lives to beat the game and continue. It's a very good game, though. It's very exciting, very action-oriented.
I've never beat Contra, even using the Konami code. I've gotten close, though. I have beaten it before, though, using something else we'll talk about later, a cheat device. Do you guys know of any other games that use the Konami code? I know there are tons upon tons of them.
There was a game that was in the series of Adventure Time. They used the Konami code, but I forgot what it did.
I think it made a screen happen, and then they just start dancing like a pixelated screen. So it's more of an Easter egg code.
The Konami code is most well known from Contra, but it's not actually the first game to use the Konami code. It's actually the second game to ever use it. The first game was Gradius. It's a scrolling shooter, and it's one of my favorite games ever on the NES, and it's wonderful. But like Contra, it's very, very, very hard. But you can use the Konami code to increase your lives.
I just noticed something between Contra and Gradius is that there's about the same amount of bullets on the screen at the same time.
Oh yeah, Contra is basically Gradius, but you get to walk around.
From left to right.
It's always got to be left to right. I mean, could you imagine games where you start at the right side of the screen and you go to the left side? It would make my head explode.
Well, Super Mario Brothers kind of made that the standard, though.
That's true. I mean, it's the first game that really scrolled like that. Now, earlier you mentioned Grand Theft Auto and beating that with cheat codes. Can we talk about those codes for a little while? Because that series has some of my favorite cheat codes.
Yeah, that series has some of the greatest cheat codes ever thought of. There's ones that can make you have a jumping car, a flying car, low gravity. There's pretty much if you can think about it, there's a code for it. And even if you can't think of it, there's a code for it.
My favorite cheat code from that series actually comes from Grand Theft Auto 5, which is really weird because, modern games aren't really known for having cheat codes. But one of the best cheat codes I've ever used has come from a really recent game. And it's one that makes it so all of your bullets, no matter what gun you're shooting, explode. And you grab a minigun and you just start shooting, and so many explosions. Oh, Michael Bay must have dreams like this.
Actually, to be honest, I have not used cheat codes in Grand Theft Auto 4 or 5 yet.
Grand Theft Auto 4's cheat codes were pretty underwhelming. Really, the only thing that constituted cheat codes were using the cell phone to dial specific numbers to spawn vehicles. And the only one really worth spawning was the attack helicopter.
Yeah, that one was always kind of fun to goof around with.
Well, my favorite code was from Vice City, and it's just changing into different characters, and the flying car. That was always fun to go around, and then just landing and crashing.
I don't know if I was weird, but the character model I always cheat coded into using was a prostitute.
I remember one time when I was using the cheat code to use Candy Sucks from Vice City, and I looked at her face and I was like, she looks like a man.
It was probably one of the male models. They just altered and gave some boobs.
It was pretty interesting.
I actually remember playing Vice City. It was the first Grand Theft Auto game I played, and I loved it. And my save file that was almost 100% completed, which is not easy to do in that game, I had an issue with it because I used a cheat code which made it so every single NPC in the game just started fighting with each other. And it was just a huge brawl everywhere, and everyone was fighting. But there were two problems with that. One, it made it so one of the very last missions in the game was unbeatable because you couldn't talk to anyone because they were all punching you in the face. And two, there was no way to turn the cheat off if you saved the game, which I did.
I find that hilarious because I kind of got stuck in the same thing, but instead all the NPCs and stuff, they'd all chase after you and they'd become a giant horde, and the lag was real on a PlayStation 2.
I remember doing that on Grand Theft Auto San Andreas, and that was completely hilarious and scary because every time I turn around, it's like I get punched. It's like, why you do this to me, Grandma?
But the thing is, with the Vice City mod that I used, nobody was violent. You just had like 30 women behind you, and you're just like, what's going on?
So you're saying only in that one video game could you have a horde of ladies chasing after you?
Ah, shut up, Jacob.
Oh.
It's not like I'd really want that in real life either.
Sure.
Because we're on the topic of people hurting each other and murdering. What about Mortal Kombat?
Oh, Mortal Kombat had some great cheat codes. Probably the most well-known one would be the cheat code in the Genesis version of Mortal Kombat, which let you turn blood on in the game, which at the time was absolutely crazy. And people are like, oh my gosh, little droplets of 16-bit blood in a video game. Ah!
Looks so real.
So scary. Hide your children.
That's actually not my favorite Mortal Kombat cheat code, though. And of course, when we say cheat code and we're talking about Mortal Kombat, that's spelled with K's instead of C's.
So it's like cheat code?
Yes. My favorite one was a very insane to pull off cheat code from Mortal Kombat Trilogy on the N64. which you had to win a certain number of fights as certain characters against certain characters, and then input like a 20-button long combination. But when you did, the screen faded to black, and then you saw little white bars on the screen, and you realized that player 1 could move one bar up and down, and player 2 could move the other. That's right. You could play Pong. When I heard that you could play a video game inside another video game, blew my mind.
Well, Pong is the oldest fighting game.
And sports game, and other games, and really, Pong was anything you said it was. That game takes a lot of imagination. You know what I think Pong is? I think Pong is actually a very early rendition of Dragon Ball Z, where each paddle is one of your Super Saiyans, and they're throwing a giant blast of energy between each other.
Kamehameha! And they're just showing it at each other.
And then, once enough time has lapsed, your score goes over 9,000, and you just get screamed at by the game.
I'm not even sure that system could even count up that high.
Hey, talking about cheat codes in games within a game, I remember playing Crash Team Racing on the PS1 and entering in the cheat code to play the demo of Spyro 2.
I remember doing that too. It was really cool. It's like, whoa, playing, not only is it another game, but it's a demo for a game that hasn't even come out yet.
To have enough space for the racing game and have a little bit more space for Spyro, that is awesome.
And it's Spyro, and it runs on its own engine and everything. It's amazing that they're able to even fit it on the same disc.
I don't want to burst your bubble, but Crash Team Racing was only about 200 megabytes, so there was a lot of space left on that CD for a demo.
Well, one thing's for sure, they definitely use that space for something cool.
It is pretty cool, actually. If you have the space, use it.
And also, in that game, if you would enter codes, you can unlock the characters. Especially, one of my favorites, it's Fake Crash.
Oh, Fake Crash. He's a bootlegged version of Crash that just looks off. You don't really know why it looks off. It just looks off.
But it looks funny, though.
And it has a really funny backstory. The character designer for the Crash series once saw a bootlegged stuffed animal of Crash. I believe it was at a flea market. Someone was selling it. And he was so inspired by it that he added it as a secret character in the game.
I'm totally going to have to just play to see that now.
And on topic of Crash Bandicoot, in Crash Bandicoot... Well, it's not Crash Bandicoot, it's Crash Tag Team Racing on the PS2 or PSP. There were two codes that were my favorite. The first one lets you play as the Japanese version of Crash Bandicoot, which looks very kawaii. And your car can look like a Lego. That's the second cheat code.
It seems like a lot of racing games had some really cool cheat codes.
Yeah, and then there's also some of the lackluster ones, like in Need for Speed Hot Pursuit 2 on the PlayStation 2. There was a cheat where you'd put it in, and you would become like microscopic little tiny cars that took up probably 1/8 of a lane, but you had a giant head out of the top. But the funny thing about this cheat code is that the vehicles were really tiny and your head was really big, but the hit zone, like the hitbox on the car, was as big as a regular car. So you'd be like 3 feet away from one car and then you'd be hitting each other, and it was really, really awkward.
However, that does sound really, really funny to look at.
It was really entertaining because I'd invite friends over and they didn't know that the cars were like this. So they'd get really, really close to there's this one level in the desert that there's these big rock structures in the middle of the road, and they would get really close with their car, and all of a sudden they'd just crash and they would be confused, and I'd win the race. But that's a story for another day.
So in other words, don't play games at Darien's house.
That was when I was in first grade.
But you still do that kind of stuff whenever I'm at your house. One of my favorite types of cheat codes are the ones that let you unlock a secret character. We talked about bootleg Crash already and kawaii Crash. But one of the ones that sticks out in my mind is in the game NBA Jam on the Super Nintendo. If you use the right cheat code, you can unlock several extra basketball players to play as. But by far, my favorite was the current president at that time, Bill Clinton. Yes, you could play as Bill Clinton. And he had the giant head because you also use the big head mode in the game. And it was so ridiculous. I just imagine him using his accent, and I'm going to butcher it, but him just going, I did not have sexual relationships with that basketball.
No, he didn't say relationships, he said relations.
Oh, excuse me, history professor.
That's just my favorite line that any president has ever said. I'm sorry.
I believe in the 2012 reboot of the series, you could actually use the same exact code to play as Barack Obama, which was really, really cool. But I wonder, 10, 15 years down the road, will they do the same thing? And we'll be able to play as whoever is the president then?
That is kind of an interesting thing to think about.
For the rest of American history, every time they release a new version of NBA Jam, you can use that same exact cheat code to play as the president.
I think it'd be funny if they released a version that you could play as every single U.S. president ever.
And no one else.
Yeah. They call it like NBA Jam presidential election. I know lots of people who'd buy that, actually.
I'd buy that. What are you talking about? I'd pre-order it right now, paid in full. Give me my game.
Yeah, I actually don't like sports games, and I don't care for basketball at all, but this would actually be one of the only sports games I'd ever own. So if EA Sports heard this, I'm giving you this idea.
You can have that one for free.
But make sure not to put a lot of DLC in it or microtransactions.
I'd pay a microtransaction to play as Joe Biden. Wait, we got to be careful. We cannot turn this show from gaming buzz to politics buzz. That is not a good idea. Let's talk about nude codes.
Tomb Raider.
Tomb Raider.
Womb Raider.
Oh. I love talking about this, and I can't stop talking about it. I always bring it up whenever we talk about funny things in video games. There was a rumor after the first ever Tomb Raider game came out, saying that you could use a special combination of buttons to make Lara Croft naked.
Yeah, I want to see those triangles all uncovered.
Oh yes, those horrible 32-bit polygons. I don't even know why anyone would like to see PS1 modeled Lara Croft naked.
Yeah, it's...
You get paper cuts just touching her.
Well, okay.
But the funny part of the story is when Tomb Raider 2 came out, the developers of the game and Eidos, they noticed that this code was rumored about, and so what they did was they put the code in the game. But it didn't do what people thought it would. People were like, oh, I gotta use that nude code to see Lara Croft nude. They pressed the combination, and, well, her clothes disappear, but so does the rest of her body in a giant explosion.
Michael Bray presents Lara Croft, the explosion.
Oh, if the Lara Croft in the actual Tomb Raider movies exploded, I'd be pretty happy.
That would be hilarious.
Worst video game movies ever. This episode of Gaming Buzz is not brought to you by Michael Bay.
Well, talking about almost nude codes, remember Metroid on the NES, right?
Yeah,
Of course, it's a classic, though it is a little bit slow nowadays.
but it is great.
Have you ever entered the code Justin Bailey?
Yes, I have.
Yep.
I was curious.
You get that one-piece suit. Oh, yeah. Awesome.
Oh, we were making fun of 32-bit graphics of Lara Croft earlier, but how about some 8-bit sprites? Ooh, steamy.
Ooh, and people were really hot and bothered by them.
It's quite funny, though. A lot of people thought Justin Bailey was someone's name, maybe one of the programmers who were working on the game, and used that to be able to see their own, I wouldn't say nudity, because, fully clothed technically, but skimpier outfits.
In 8-bit.
But the general consensus nowadays, though it's never been confirmed by Nintendo, is what it's referring to is it's actually just in, with a space between that, Bailey, which is a British slang term for a one-piece swimsuit. So she's just in her Bailey.
It's not very mind-blowing, but it is very interesting. And it's kind of funny because a lot of people thought that Samus was a dude, and then when they beat the game, or they entered this code, they'd be like, there's a girl? This was like way ahead of its time in video game history.
Mom, get the camera. I'm playing as a girl.
Don't you mean get the Polaroid?
Oh, I'm sorry. Mom, get the Polaroid.
Get your camera, they have to point, and you have to like aim it, and you have to sit there for 2 hours for the picture to actually capture anything. I forgot what those are called.
A Polaroid?
Those ones are instant though.
Mom, go get your canvas and your art pad so you can paint a picture of me playing this video.
But we're talking about the 1980s, not the 1780s.
Same difference. You know, one of the codes that I spent the most time using and just exploring with was, and there are lots of games that use this code, but no-clip codes.
Ooh, those are really fun.
The codes that let you just walk through walls and go anywhere you want to in the level. I'm always surprised by developers who are confident enough with their games to say, hey, here's a way to completely break the game. You're still going to enjoy it. The game that I especially remember the no-clip code from, there was the Duke Nukem games, the earlier ones. Duke Nukem 3D had it, and it was quite fun to use. But the game that really, really stuck out to me in Doom, one of the most influential games of all time. Have either of you ever used the no-clip code in the original Doom?
Yes, I have.
Do you remember what it was?
I don't know.
The code is IDKFA. For any kids who are listening to this, please ignore this part of the discussion. And it stands for id Software, the ID, KFA, kicks fucking ass. Any children who were pretending not to listen but secretly were, you can continue listening.
Mom, get the camera.
Oh, but a lot of your earlier PC games had some really, really fun codes. And Christian, I know you're over there dying to talk about Mega Man cheat codes, aren't you?
Yeah. I remember beating Mega Man X5, and at the end of the game, it gave you, because you beat the game, it's like, congratulations, here's a secret code. There's two different ones. One's for Zero, and one's for Mega Man X. The Zero one will give you basically what you call Black Zero, with his, instead of being red, it's black colored.
Racist.
Oh. And Mega Man X gets the ultimate armor, which is an endgame secret item that you can find at the very beginning. So you're pretty much OP at the beginning of the game.
See, the really cool thing about that was back in the day, you actually had to beat the game to use it. But nowadays, if that came out, you just look it up online and someone would have posted it somewhere for you to use.
By the way, for X5, it was just easy. It was like up, down, left, whatever, R1, something like that. But for X4, I had to look it up online because there was a code, but I don't know how people figure that out. Maybe through a interview or something like that. X4 for Zero, it was just Black Zero, but it was just cosmetic. And for Mega Man X, made his color tint purple. But you were like, what does that do? If you go to the first level of the game after beating the beginning stage, there's going to be an armor area where you get your first armor piece. Instead of giving you the helmet, it gives you the full ultimate armor, which makes you OP.
You have shown me that before, and I'm just sitting here watching you, and I'm like, I still wouldn't be able to beat it. I am not good at Mega Man.
That's okay, you know. Not everybody's good at every single game.
The only Mega Man game where I've ever been able to beat any of the Robot Masters or Mavericks or whatever you want to call them, the bosses, is Mega Man Powered Up on the PSP, and that game was kind of easier than your typical Mega Man game.
It is very easy.
Yeah, Mega Man's not too easy for me either. I've only beaten Mega Man 2 on the Game Boy.
And how many Mega Man games has Christian beat?
All of them but one of them.
Which one?
Legends. Still playing it. It's kind of interesting because I'm taking my time.
I would like to bring to your guys' attention what definitively is the greatest video game cheat code ever made. Have either of you ever played the original Medal of Honor on PS1?
No, it honestly looked kind of lame.
I've never played it.
I can see where you say that. It's a PS1 first-person shooter, and the graphics nowadays look the worst. And it's a World War II shooter, which we have hundreds of, and kind of have gotten boring. But when you're playing multiplayer, there's a cheat code you can use to turn your boring, ordinary World War II soldier into a T-Rex.
My jaw literally dropped.
The game's worth playing just for that.
Yes. Now I'm going to hunt down all the copies I can find and give them to all my friends that have PlayStation 1s and stuff that can play PlayStation 1 games so they can experience it.
Oh, I have the game. I'll show you guys later. It is just the most insane thing ever, and I love it, and you should too.
I think that's the only reason to own it nowadays.
Pretty much. I mean, the best part of that game is having friends over who don't know about that cheat code and having them set up their characters and click ready to start, and then you just sit there and go do, and they're like, "What are you doing?" And you're like, "Nothing." And you start the match. It still shows the icon of a normal soldier, so they're like, "Oh, nothing's wrong." And then you walk towards them, about to kill them, and they're like, "What the hell? Why are you a T-Rex?"
I would have the same reaction.
That's hilarious.
I'd be running away. It's like, nope.
And then you eat them. It's the Jurassic Park game we always wanted but never got. One where you get to play as the T-Rex. And the cool thing is, you're not the normal size of a soldier. You actually do get bigger. Not the actual size of a T-Rex, but you definitely feel bigger and stronger than your ordinary soldiers. And you just tank bullets. It takes forever to kill someone who's playing as a T-Rex.
I feel like they make a very interesting multiplayer mode in a new game.
You mean a game where multiple players are soldiers and they're trying to take down one giant monster?
Yeah.
So you mean Evolve, minus the hundreds of microtransactions.
Yeah.
Oh, that game had so much potential but lost it so quick.
I know, it seems like a cool thing, but...
The hype train ran out of coal.
So what do you guys think? Are cheat codes just gone? Or are we going to see more of them again in the future?
I think that we'll probably see a resurgence of cheat codes because a lot of indie developers are making them popular again.
I definitely think that indie games are going to show us some more creative things people can do with cheat codes. But I feel like AAA developers making your big ticket games aren't going to do things like hide a T-Rex in the game and then let you discover it using a button combination. Instead, they're going to say, hey, you can get the DLC T-Rex for this game for only $6.99.
See, that's the sad part, fun stuff like that. Why, just, I want to put a cheat code and be like, oh my God, I can be a T-Rex, like you just said.
The only game in recent memory that had a lot of cheat codes that was AAA but wasn't Grand Theft Auto that I can think of was Uncharted 2. And you still had to beat the game once before you could even use the cheat codes. And granted, they were all pretty cool, but nothing completely crazy. I mean, the best one was one that completely turned gravity off for any object that had ragdolled. So if you shot an enemy and killed them, they just flew up into space. And that was really funny and really cool. But I can't help but feel that that's an anomaly nowadays, and that's not common.
I sometimes I feel like some of the modern games do have cheat codes, but we haven't discovered them. But that's a long shot.
Oh, what if that's the reason? We're all just too lazy to find them nowadays.
That's true. That could be.
But we have tools that can find cheat codes in the codes, though, that people end up creating. And
unless the game is The Binding of Isaac. Right, Christian?
Right, man.
The Binding of Isaac Afterbirth, the newest game in the series, it had a secret unlockable character. But because the creator of the game knew that data miners would just find the game using their programming tools, instead of releasing it in the game, what they did was they had a very, very elaborate and crazy scavenger hunt. In real life, people had to go through and tweet on Twitter the clues that they've found, and it's absolutely crazy like how elaborate it was. But in the end, as soon as someone figured out the end of the puzzle, they updated the game with the new character available. Maybe that's the way we'll get cheat codes. So instead of having to press up, up, down, down, left, right, A, B, select, start, you have to walk a couple blocks to the nearest store and find a bobblehead of your favorite character hidden in an alley and take a picture of it and put it on Instagram, and then you get your secret character.
It seems kind of cool to have the idea of a community-driven way of cheat codes, or I don't really know what to call them, but a community-driven kind of event to have something cheat codey.
They're real-life cheat codes. It's cool.
It seems really cool. I mean, it would be a lot easier if they could like set stuff up on the internet or like within the game.
But for sure, with all the success that Afterbirth had with that and all the hype that it drummed up, we're going to start seeing that kind of thing a lot more, I think.
You know, you talked about data miners, right? And code searchers, whatever. One of the games that a lot of people, data mine was Shovel Knight. And you can put a certain name and it will do something. For example, you can put, I don't remember it for certain because it's too long, but it will let you turn into giant Shovel Knight, no gravity, underwater physics, ice physics, have everything at the beginning.
Seems interesting. Is it kind of like the idea in Legend of Zelda Link's Awakening on the Game Boy, where if you put Zelda in as your name, the music would all of a sudden turn into like a salsa rendition of the music?
Pretty much, but in Shovel Knight, it affects the game more. And another cool one is if there's a certain code that makes everybody's name, instead of knight, it's butt.
Oh, the butt code.
Yep.
It's not just the name. It's like every other word in the game is turned to the word butt.
So instead of Shovel Knight, it's butt.
Yeah, it's pretty much every noun in the game is turned to butt. And it's like the most immature thing ever, but it's still really funny. Just hearing, butt, you must butt the butt and save the butt.
Or you must butt the butt because, save is a verb.
Well, on that fine note, I think we're just about out of time for this discussion.
But why?
Oh. Too many butts, guys. Why don't we end our discussion, just like we always do, by asking, what game are you guys playing this week? Darien, what are you playing?
I will be playing Dark Souls 2, Scholar of the First Sin on PlayStation 3.
Hey, man, you're welcome. Happy birthday. Everybody, send them a bunch of things. But I didn't say anything.
Yeah, tomorrow's Darien's birthday, so he got some cool games. Now, I'm going to be playing Fallout 3 this week, also on PlayStation 3, because I picked it up dirt cheap, and, I never really was that big into Fallout, but now that I've actually set aside the time to really get into the games and have fun, it's really grabbing me, and I'm having a lot of trouble putting the game down.
Hey, I also got Fallout 3 recently, and I'm having the opposite issue. I can't pick it up because I don't know what to do.
It's one of those things where if you play a game with a billion different options, you don't know where to start.
Basically, that's what my problem is.
I know for a fact, Christian, you're playing Mega Man.
Yes, I'll be playing Mega Man 9. And gosh darn, that game is hard. Yeah, I'm jumping around games. I know.
Which system are you playing it on?
I'm sorry, on PS3. That's right. That game came out in the modern age where people can download games.
So we're all playing PlayStation 3 games this week, huh?
That's funny.
Hey, look, we're not being glued to our Nintendo systems.
Well, I'm sure we'll pop in for a little Mario Maker here and there.
Yeah.
Which reminds me, did you beat my level, Jacob?
No. It's too hard. I tried streaming one of your levels, and I was just so mad that I'm just like, nope.
You were screaming instead of streaming.
Oh, well, yeah. Visit our sponsors who make this podcast possible by visiting gamingbuzz.com/sponsors. If you enjoyed this episode, please share it on Facebook with your friends or on Twitter. And if you'd like, please submit a show review. You can do so by visiting gamingbuzz.com/8. That's the number 8. And as always, I'm Jacob.
I'm Christian.
And I'm Darien.
Thanks for listening to Gaming Buzz. New episodes can be found on gamingbuzz.com. Don't forget to like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter, and subscribe to our YouTube channel.